Coogs House. All right. Yep, you guessed it. More hoops.
You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Cougs, the daily podcast about your Houston Cougars. I'm your host, Houston-born teacher and coach Parker Ainsworth, here to break down all things Cougs. If you're a U of H fan or just a hater who came to stop by, please be sure to hit subscribe down below. That way we can lay us on Cougs in your newsfeed each and every day. We appreciate you making Locked On Cougs your first listen of the day. Welcome back to the YouTube channel. That's where you found us. It is so good to see you again. Remember to hit subscribe. We're doing a giveaway every 250 subscribers. We're not quite to the 1750 mark. We're in the 1600. So hit subscribe to help us get there, and like and comment on the video to let us know you're in the contest. If basketball's not your jam, but you're here anyway, tell us in the comments down below what kind of fajitas you ordered. Chicken, steak, combo, something in between, something different and more exotic. Let us know. All right. Today, we're going to continue the conversation with Ish and Matthew talking about all things Houston Cougar basketball. So without further ado, let's jump on in and talk about the schedule and the Big 12 and recruiting and all of that fun jazz. We've alluded to the Big 12, and I don't mean to bypass that. We are going to get to that in a second. But Houston's got a handful of big non-conference games. They're playing in a Charleston Classic, which has a number of options, and we don't need to go down the entire...
I'll be there for that.
You're going to be at Charleston?
I'll be there. LSU and North Texas are also going to be there.
And Houston opens with Towson, but they have potential to play a handful of really talented programs. I think the underscore there isn't St. John's and Rick Pitino there as well. I mean,
St. John's, I think, versus North Texas in the first round.
Okay. We don't necessarily know who they play throughout that bracket, but it's a fun thing.
Sure.
We know they play Xavier and Texas A&M, which are two difficult games. Xavier being on the road and A&M being technically a neutral site, which is at the Toyota Center in Houston. What do we know about those matchups? Obviously, y'all cover A&M as well. But Matthew, what do you know about Xavier or A&M as far as non-conference matchups? What can Houston look forward to in those kind of games?
I mean, if we go back to Xavier, I was really high on Xavier last year, almost to a fault. Now, I got UConn right as winning the championship, but I had a Xavier, I think, going a few rounds deeper than they actually did. Regardless, Xavier was interesting last year because they had Sule Boom from UTEP, a guard who we watched in depth, and then he goes over there and basically lights it up. So it's going to be interesting to see how they replace him. They had a few guys last year that I don't know their roster off the top of my head, but
actually, well, I'm curious. Do you know? I'm looking at their roster right now. Do you know who they actually have? It's
Abu Usman. They have Abu Usman from North Texas.
One more.
From
Quincy
Texas?
Olivari.
Who?
Quincy Olivari.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Okay.
So
God, we know everything about this team. All right.
We know everything.
Quincy Olivari and Abu Usman. All right.
They just love picking up Conference USA players that we've covered before.
That's right. Yeah, we were making fun of them for taking all the Conference USA players. Okay. I really liked last year's team. This year's team, Abu and Quincy, those are guys that are stepping up from obviously the mid-major level. I would expect Houston to be able to keep them at bay overall, especially
early like that.
Yeah, especially early in the year. I mean, I like Olivari as a scorer. Maybe he has a Sule Boom type breakout. I don't know, but Abu I think is good, but he's kind of a ground bound center to a degree at North Texas. So if Jawan Roberts and guys like that can maybe out jump him and be physical with him, that'll be something I don't think he's seen a ton of. But yeah, Xavier was a team I loved last year. They only made it 3 rounds deep before losing to Texas. But I do think that's a really good test.
Yeah. Ishmael, what do you know about Texas A&M? Because y'all cover them as you cover the whole state. Yeah. I think they surprised some people last year. Like they beat Alabama last year. And so I don't know that people think of them as a basketball school. What do you know about the Ags?
We heading into last year, me and Bruni were like, this has to be the year that Buzz Williams does something. And sure enough, it ended up being the year because
remember non-conference play, we were ready to get rid. We were like, Buzz is done.
So we were absolutely ready to write them off because the year before, they ended very promising. I was like, okay, cool. Let's see what they have heading into this year.
NIT.
And then they come out, they lose to Colorado, they lose to Murray State, and then I think they lost to there's one more game that they lost where I'm just like, I'm out on this team. I think it was Boise State or something. And it was like, I'm out on this team.
And Wofford.
And then God, they lost to Wofford.
They just
they
keep
were
stacking.
awful, non-conference. It was bad.
We were done.
But then we underestimated, or I guess we overestimated how good the SEC would be last year. Everybody was just bad except Alabama. And so they go. What did they finish? Let me see. They finished
15-3.
15-3 in the SEC, and of course, like you mentioned, they beat Alabama, and then they end up almost. I mean, they of course collapse in the championship game, but they almost beat them in they make it to the championship game, and we're like, I guess this team's pretty good. Wade Taylor, for those that don't know, the guy to know for A&M is Wade Taylor. Outside of Jamal Shead, he's probably the best returning guard, I would think, in the state, in my opinion, as far as like point guard. Because like pure point guard play really isn't that common right now. You have a lot of two guards, a lot of combo guards. These two guys are Jamal Shead and Wade Taylor. Like they run your offense and they run your team. Wade Taylor's taken an insane step over the last year. He kind of took an insane step forward as basically being. That was the thing we complained about with Buzz Williams. This team was like, who's the alpha? And we're like, we don't know about any guy on A&M, right? You can look at Houston and say Marcus Sasser was the guy. Quentin Grimes was the guy. It became Wade Taylor last year. And I have to give credit there because he basically ranked in the top percentile of like almost every, like whether it was efficiency and assisting and scoring, like he just really took a leap forward. So I'm curious because they do have kind of a three-man core with him, Tyrese Radford, and Henry Coleman coming back. Those guys have been together for, I guess, 3 years now. I guess it's been a while.
This is.
I was about to say these guys.
Last year we said they were running it back, and now they're all back again.
So yeah, this is a team that's been together for a while, and they probably got a lot of playing time, like a year or two early or whatever. But it's paying off now. So this is a team they're going to compete in the SEC just because again they're one of the more experienced teams. Immediately in the offseason, I don't see any SEC team that got drastically better to where I'm like putting them clearly above A&M or at least like in the tiers.
I have them, and I think I put them in Tennessee as like the top two.
Yeah, right. And so I mean, this is going to be a perfect test for Houston. Like I would love for these two teams to meet each other because this would be incredible, engaging both the teams. Because it could be a great game. One team could blow each other out, and it's like, okay, we can draw conclusions from that.
Well, so they're playing at Toyota, which is dubbed a neutral site. And I think we think of that as being Houston. It's actually a fun day of basketball for people. It's Texas plays LSU, and Houston plays A&M. It's like a one ticket gets both games.
There you go.
I didn't know that game was after LSU. I just knew about the LSU Texas.
Yeah, and so it's all at Toyota. Well, people are already talking about like it's going to be. Frankly, we're Houston Cougars trying to make sure there's some red in the stadium because those are four teams that have a lot of fans in the city of Houston, and so while it's technically neutral, it'd be nice to have some red T-shirts out there.
Yeah.
I do want to talk some about the Big 12 schedule. Obviously, Houston in the Big 12 was a big deal in basketball, and frankly, while a lot of my listeners love football, it is the state of Texas. I don't mean to say it's not. Football is a very fun game to watch and all that. The Big 12 in basketball, I mean, this is like two different this is the king and the queen in your deck of cards coming together, right? Matthew, when you heard Houston basketball Big 12, I mean, as someone who covers the state, what was your first thought? I mean, it's been a couple years ago now, but what was your first thought?
My first thought was, I'm glad I don't have to watch them play Tulsa and disrespect to the other schools in the American, because now North Texas is in the American. So hey, the American's a great conference. But I was just, I was just glad I get to watch them. I get to pay attention to them more because Ish and I, over the last 2 years, it's like, all right, let's circle the games we're going to watch Houston, and you will watch, the close game. Like I remember watching them lose to Temple. I think it was last year or 2 years ago, whatever it was. You watch the losses because they're close and competitive, but when they're up 40 on a random team, you're not watching it. So we circle the Memphis games, we circle the Tulane games. Those Tulane games were good, at least for a while. We'd circle games to watch. Now we can just watch every single game, like we do with all these Big 12 teams, because Big Baylor, TCU, like would watch the Big 12 just on constant loop every single night, basically. And
all right, now as you're assembling this roster, you got to make sure you assemble the best people for it. If you're going to jump into something like the Big 12, you can't just add anybody, because these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high stakes wager for your small business. And you've got to be 100% certain you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs to find the right people for your team faster and for free. So if you're the Big 12 looking for a big time basketball program to add to your conference, you probably add Houston, right? That's what they did. That's what you should do. And if you're trying to get that kind of a hire or addition to your small business, make sure you check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
And now we get to add Houston to the mix.
Ishmael, same question. Houston joins the conference. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, they were the best conference in the country last year, and probably going on 2 years. And you had Houston. You had one of the best. I guess you would technically still classify them as the mid-major in the AAC. So you add the best mid-major of the past couple of years, and all of a sudden, like me and Bruni were very skeptical of Houston heading into the tournament last year, not because of what anything on, like, we weren't saying Marcus Sasser's not good enough. That wasn't it, but because of what Bruni said, right? We could only really get something from them from Memphis, from if they slipped up every once in a while. The year before Kendrick Davis left, it was like, okay, is Kendrick Davis going to go off again with SMU? It was like, that was it. And despite playing pretty tough non-conference, it's basically a month or two of, maybe having one or two tests. And that was where we were like, okay, this is where this team has to show us, because the slip-ups against Memphis, right? I think one of the times they beat Memphis, I don't think Kendrick Davis played. And so it was like, and then it was a buzzer. It was the Jamal Shead buzzer beat, I remember.
Yep.
And so I was like, I don't know if this, I really did not know if this team was a Final Four team last year, just based off what I saw. Now, there's this team cannot take a week off. Like, there may be one game against, I'm trying to think. Maybe I guess West Virginia this year. If
West Virginia's not terrible.
I have no idea what they're going to look like under Bob Huggins. I have no idea.
Yeah.
Without Bob Huggins. But I'm trying to pick up like the theoretical worst team. Right.
In theory,
they get
BYU or UCF.
They get BYU in Central Florida. And I don't know enough about those programs. I know Central Florida had the Hendricks kid, but obviously he's a pro now.
Cincinnati's rebuilding a little bit, but those teams, even those teams are, top 60 teams every year. So
I was about to say those teams are like probably with just below the Houston and Memphis in the AAC. And so it's like, I know Houston, like we saw the non-conference schedule last year, right? They beat St. Mary's in a rock fight, right? They beat Oregon. We know they can go. They destroyed Oral Roberts, right? We know they can take it to these teams. But now they don't get that 2-week layoff of just like, well, we just mop the floor with everybody. I'm pumped, like genuinely. And they also, like we talked about at the beginning of the show, they fit the dynamic, right? Baylor plays defense. They play defense. We know Grant McCaslin's going to get Tech playing defense again. Like, they just fit the mold now. You see the Big 12 and you see Houston now. You're like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, they fit right in.
Matthew, the matrix came out. The schedules are out at this point. Houston gets a home and home with Texas and a home and home with Kansas. Obviously, those are all must-watch games. I believe, if memory serves me correctly, they're all ESPN primetime, either the Saturday night primetime slot or the Big Monday primetime slot. I mean, those are all marquee games, including, let me pull this up. Yeah, they play Monday of 1 week. They play Saturday, Kansas State, Monday, Texas, and the following Saturday at Kansas. Like, that's a very, very difficult week. Is it kind of that home and home stretch, Texas, Kansas, Houston? Is that who's looking at the top of this conference, or do we need to be looking out for other guys to kind of come take the throne there?
I have Kansas as the best team in the country going into the year. At this point, I think they are, with Hunter Dickinson now, I think they are the best team. So that's my number one. If you look at the rest, Texas is really interesting. Obviously, add Max Avis, add a handful of other transfers. Don't add Rod and Holland and AJ Johnson. So it's kind of interesting to watch them have to toil with that. I think they're a good team. I don't think they're a great team. I think Houston can, step in and have the firepower to match a team like TCU, Texas, Kansas State. Like I have that second tier wide open with all of those teams. And I'm probably forgetting like Baylor, I'd probably throw in there too. So that's like that second tier. I have no problem putting Houston there. Now, do I think they're 2 or do I think they're 6? That's something I'm probably gonna have to decide in the next couple weeks as we continue to preview the state. But they're definitely up there for me.
Ishmael, same thing. Are you thinking, how do you think that I see those 3, Texas, Kansas, and Houston as the top 3, but y'all cover the whole state. You've done the Big 12 for a minute now. So what are you seeing as the top of the conference? What's it look like to you?
Yeah, I think I'm with Bruni on Kansas. I think Kansas is, to me right now, Kansas is a solo one. If I had to pick right now, I think it's Houston. And I think I'm slowly coming around to Baylor over Texas right now. I wonder. We had again part of it is we did a show with Scott Drew, so I looked up a lot of Baylor stuff, and like it wasn't. No, I didn't buy the Kool-Aid.
He sold us all.
Yeah, I know. I drank the Kool-Aid. No, but just looking at more about that roster, I love all their portal additions. Like. I like a lot of Texas's additions. I love basically all of their Baylor's additions. So I think I'm going Houston to almost 2A, 2B with Baylor, because I think that we got to see it, but I think Baylor put together a roster that Scott Drew loves genuinely. I think this is a team that can play defense, a team that's going to have outside shooting, size, versatility, all that stuff. Texas, again, I like it, and I think they can make it work. But as far as I think they're closer to 3rd, 4th-ish than I think to the top. The team that I probably know the least about, but I'm intrigued the most about, and Bruni, I don't know if you agree, is TCU.
Yeah.
TCU added 27 players. I don't know, but apparently
they have 2 basketball teams. Actually, they have 2 whole basketball teams.
Exactly. Well, so no joke, they could run 2 basketball teams and like have decent lineups.
Yeah, they
have like 13, 14 players that can all play. Now, 1, how do they all play? 2, can a lot of them step up from like Travian Tennyson from Corpus Christi step up to the Big 12, right? But they have a lot of players that I'm familiar with. That I don't know, like, is it a situation where like, hey, we just have these 9 guys and we just have really good 10th, 11th, 12th players who just don't play? I don't know. Or is it platoon in and out?
Yeah.
We got to figure it out. So TCU is somebody who I could see sneakily, all of a sudden you look down in January, they're 3rd and it's like, that's crazy. Or it's like, actually they're like 7th or 6th and it's like, it's fine. So I don't know. TCU, all I'm saying is to watch out for TCU this year.
Matthew, TCU. I hadn't thought much about TCU. Obviously, with Mike Miles being gone and Lampkin being gone, there was kind of an ugly exit actually. Lampkin, that I'm sure y'all got into.
Bickering, yeah.
And frankly, there was a hot second where I was like, "Well, if we're gonna get Cryer, can we get Lampkin too?" And like all those kind of things. Matthew, are you also? You had said TCU's in that same second window with you, or is Ish on his own there?
No, yeah, I think TCU. It's just such an interesting team. Like Jameer Nelson's coming from Delaware. Like you said, they have players coming from all different levels, and Assam Mustafa coming from Coastal Carolina. Like, I think there is enough depth here to be competitive, but obviously you need top end talent. They relied a lot on Mike Miles last year, and losing that and replacing that is something that Jameer Nelson's gonna have to prove to a degree. So that's they do have questions. They are kind of in that second tier. The more the offseason's going on, the kind of colder I've gotten a little bit, but I still think they're in that 5, 6, 7 range for TCU.
It's just such a deep conference because like last year, I believe they went 9-9 and made the 9-9 makes the tournament. 500 makes the tournament, right? Like that's just how talented.
We almost thought Texas Tech was gonna make a run at it, and
I was about to say there was like a 4 or 5 game win streak where we're like, is Tech gonna make the tournament? What's happening here?
Exactly.
All right, so the Houston Cougars don't play this weekend, but that doesn't mean you can't win. You got to snap into the action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. Right now, they got the Houston Texans. The line has moved slightly, but they're still the underdog technically at Atlanta. Did you watch that Toy Story game? They got us as the underdog playing a bunch of Legos. Okay, I'm now being told that there aren't actually Legos playing, but you catch my drift. You make sure you go to FanDuel.com and take the Houston Texans. That's my recommendation. I guess you can fade me if you want to, but I'm telling you to do it. Whatever you want to do at FanDuel.com/locked on and get kick off your NFL season. Get that $200 back in bonus bets. FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL. My segue, I guess, is like, I think Houston fans are somewhat prepared. I don't know if they really understand, and I don't mean to speak. I'm sure the listener today in this specific episode right now is very smart, but the average fan, I think, realizes like they're going to take some lumps. Like this is going to be a minefield. Realistically, Houston's a very top tier program, but is coming up into a whole new bracket of basketball in a lot of ways. I'll let whoever wants to go first. Actually, what can a fan expect watching Houston go from a dominant 30-plus win a year kind of team in an American Athletic Conference that beats Power 5 teams to suddenly playing the best every week?
It's literally, I mean, we were talking about it, but Kansas State and Baylor went 11-7 in conference last year, and they were both 3 seeds in the NCAA tournament. Like, there is, like you said, TCU and Iowa State go 9-9 each. We're both 6 seeds in the NCAA tournament. So it's like Houston could go 11-7 and be a top 10 team in the country. And that's kind of just how things go. I don't know like what I would predict them to go right now, but I mean 11-7 feels safe. 12-6 feels safe. So I mean anything more than that, you might be winning the conference. Like Kansas went 13-5 last year. So that's just what I'm expecting from Houston this year is they're gonna take lumps, like you said. I'm interested in how the front court plays out, but this is just gonna be really fun to watch unfold.
Yeah, same thing. What's realistic?
Yeah, I think it's right. I mean, what won the conference last year? I'm trying to say it was 13-5, and that was like Kansas looked really good, right? That was a really good year, right? And so I think 11-7. If you look at that, and like obviously Houston fans will be like 11-7, that stinks. We're almost 500 in conference. It's like, yeah, that's what could pull it out, like genuinely. I'll also say, get used to every once in a while you either go to Fog Allen or you go to Waco and you just play a game that doesn't cross 100 points. You just do, right? You're gonna have the random game in February where it's 52-49 and it's like, well, you either win that one or you don't, and that's just how the Big 12 goes, right? Ask Baylor fans that one year. I think they beat Kansas and it was like 61-59. And it's like, that's just sometimes you're not going to, Houston's had the benefit of no one being able to guard them basically at all. And you're going to play a bunch of teams that are going to be able to guard you and you're going to be able to guard them. And sometimes it becomes a chess match of where those half court sets come from. And personally, I'm curious because like I would love to see Kelvin Sampson in that environment, right? Every week where he's having to prepare for Scott Drew, for Grant McCaslin, for Rodney Terry, and it's like
Jerome Tang.
That's awesome. I'm very Jerome Tang. Oh my god, Porter Moser is going to be coaching like the worst team probably, and it's like he's still one of the best coaches in recent years. So like I love the fact that we get to see Kelvin Sampson like at his A game like for 2 months basically.
Well, also
I'll say enjoy the ride, but prepare to be frustrated. That's part of it.
Also, they're playing in these environments too. No offense to the American. Point. We love the American. But Texas, Baylor, Kansas, Kansas State, these places are rocking. These are the best environments in college basketball. And you're not playing at these other places in the American. So that's a big step up in itself.
Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting because I think Houston has for a while now gotten everyone else in the American's A game, right? Like they're the team other schools were circling for sure. So I think they understand that aspect of it. But the Tulane A game, and I liked Tulane's guards a lot last year. The Tulane A game is not the same as I don't know who was the bottom of the conference. Iowa State's A game, right? Like they weren't even bottom of the conference, but you got me on that, right? Like it's a whole different step up. Yeah, Oklahoma State I guess was bottom. And what's funny is like this is showing my age. I think of Oklahoma State as being a good basketball school from like the Eddie Sutton days, and this is not those Oklahoma States. Yeah. So last thing on the Big 12 in Houston is recruiting. And I don't mean to I know y'all do high school stuff too, and so I want to ask Houston's got one 2024 commit. Now it is Mercy Miller, he is a top whatever kid from California, but has the connections with his dad, Master P, right? Otherwise, though, they're kind of swinging a miss on a lot of high school kids in the state of Texas for sure. I'm really holding out for Nick Cody. I think Nick Cody's gotten a lot of steam in the last couple of years.
Yeah, I think Nick Cody could make sense there. I mean, I've as someone who I cover LSU, and their LSU's in on him too. I think Cody there would make a lot of sense to me personally.
So that's what I say. Is there any recruit that jumps out as like that kid would make sense as a Houston kid? Because we're gonna need some bodies at some point.
Oh yeah, I watched Nick Cody. I made a trip to College Station or to Bryan to watch the AAU Adidas tournament. Nick Cody was a guy at the time that was a 3-star prospect, and I was watching him. He's one of the ones I wrote down, and I'm watching him, and I'm talking to Grant McCaslin, and Grant was like, I had already talked to Grant's assistant who came from North Texas, and I was like, yeah, this Nick Cody guy is killing it. And he's like, yeah, he's all right. And then Grant's like, oh yeah, I heard you talk to him about Nick Cody. Yeah, he should have offered him as soon as y'all saw him together. Like this is a dude that very clearly can play at this level. His rating and rankings gone through the roof. He's top 50 player in the country now. I think Houston makes a lot of sense. LSU is still in it from what I understand, but I don't know which way he's leaning. But Houston would make a lot of sense from there. I like him a lot.
I know that they're disappointed to miss out on Robert Miller. He was somebody out of Pasadena. I think LSU got him, right, Bruni? Yeah. So he's somebody who I thought would have made. I mean, hometown kid, or essentially home area kid. I like Nick Cody a lot. I'm still doing some of my deep dives into the 2024 class, especially the Houston area, but we'll see. I don't know. Like, I'm very curious if I was a little surprised that Memphis recruits well, but I was a little surprised they were able to get like a Jared Harris out of Silsby. Again, they recruit well, but like I thought that'd be kind of in the mold of a Houston kind of guy. I saw Jared Harris when they almost single-handedly beat Oak Cliff Faith Family, which is just an all-star team of a 4A squad. And so I figured that was like, I watched him and I was like, that's a kid playing above his size. He's only 6'2", but he played like he was like 6'6". I'm curious. I don't know. I don't know. I'm wondering if we'll see, and I know it's not the same as football where people just flip all the time, but I wonder if we're looking at potentially some type of surprise somewhere. We'll see. Because like I think it's like I don't know. We'll just see. Because I also know that Houston still has like some guys coming back. Like I think they lose Roberts and
Shed.
Yeah, so like
are you not old? How old is Cryer?
Guys, but not like not a lot of numbers. So I'm wondering if there's maybe if they just go portaling next year as well.
Cryer's listed as a senior. I don't know his COVID year status. Is he a true senior? I don't know what his
we're a year away from. I think he was also getting rid of COVID seniors. I think
we're a year away from getting rid of those.
I think so.
Still, yeah.
And then Damian Dunn is a last. I think he's a grad student technically. So there's a couple of spots. But you mentioned something, Ishmael, that I've been wondering. Are there? And this is maybe in the weeds and totally conjecture. And feel free to call bogus. Is it possible though that there are kids that are waiting to see what does Houston in the Big 12 look like? Yeah, sure. You mentioned a kid from Silsby. Like they're thinking like, okay, Houston's been great. I'll go ahead and take this off. I'll verbally say this, but I got an eye there to see what's going on. Or is that not a thing that happens in basketball?
I mean, I think I don't know how much it happens in basketball, but like, I mean, I'm curious, right? Like, it's one thing to be like, I'm trying to think of a more drastic example. Oh, here's one. Sam Houston jumping up to FBS, right? It's like, do you want to compete for national titles in the FCS? Or do you want to go 6-6 and try to make a bowl, right? If you're and if you're good enough to make FBS, do you just want to go to a North Texas or a SMU or, like, do you want to try to? So I'm curious, like, is Houston, do you want to compete because like in Memphis, sure, they're left in the AAC, but they're going to be one of the top teams in the AAC. You want to compete for conferences and all that? Or is there a chance, are you like, Houston, could they get left in the middle of the pack of the Big 12? I don't know. That's a little weird. Would I just want to go to Kansas? I don't know. I wouldn't be shocked if like Houston hits the ground running. They start unbeaten in Big 12 play, or at least show really well, and all of a sudden they nab another name or two. So I don't know. I'm curious. I'm very curious, and I'm also this was the first year that I think, I don't say the first year, but this is one of the big years that like Kelvin Sampson really went for a splash in the transfer portal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like he went and got LJ Crowder and Damian Dunn are like, okay, those were guys, right? And so I'm wondering how much he sees that as like, or the past couple of recruiting cycles of, well, I can get a Jarris Walker and I can get a Joseph Tugler, and then the rest I can just go get the portal, right? So I can get my 1 or 2 guys from high school that are really good, and then let me just go get plug and play guys that can just work in my system. Because I think, honestly, I think more schools may do that. Like, I don't know if we're ever going to see the Kentucky's rolling out 5 stars all over the court because they just don't win anymore, right? Those teams don't come together in 2 months and all of a sudden, as 18-year-olds, can put together a team. So I think Kelvin Sampson, and I also think Kelvin Sampson likes working with older teams. Like he's like, it's easy for a Jarris Walker to sit in next to a Marcus Sasser and a Juwan Roberts than it is for, a Terrence Arsenault to come in and play 30 minutes a game.
Right. Well, and Terrence is interesting because he could have gone a lot of places and played 30 minutes a game, right?
Oh,
and Jarris could have gone a lot of places and played 40 minutes a game. And they chose.
Let's talk about Tremont Mark went to Arkansas. Yeah. He was like, this is a crowded backcourt. I'm going to go play 20 to 25 minutes.
Well, and I'm worried we're going to miss Tremont, but I wish him the best unless we play each other. I don't mean any hate by that, but I think we're going to miss him. Matthew, as we sign off here, tell us, where can we find you? You do work on 24/7, work with Dave Campbell. So you got a lot of stuff going on. Where can people find you and your work and all that kind of fun stuff?
Yeah, I made the move over to On3, cover LSU. So I did. I didn't mention that in my timeline, but yeah, a couple of years ago, moved on 3, cover LSU there. But yeah, Dave Campbell's Texas basketball. That's really obviously what we do and what we've poured a lot of time into over the offseason. And now getting back into the season, we'll be back in two times a week podcast. We got top 10 backcourts coming out. We got all the preview content coming out with a month before the season starts. So you can check us out on Twitter, DCT Basketball. Follow me on Twitter, Matthew Bruni _ and so that's kind of where I'm at.
Ishmael, I see you tweeting a lot. I know. I think you're the Suns fan. I see you on my Twitter timeline a lot as well.
He's the only one.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Well, you say unfortunately. I mean, they got Bradley Beal, right?
I'm used to saying unfortunately. I don't need to say that anymore. They're actually good now.
Yeah,
it's been a long time.
You get Kevin Durant, and it's just like, unfortunately, just hard life.
Yeah. He also wanted Damian Lillard. Like that's clearly.
He wanted Damian Lillard too.
Ishmael, besides talking trash about Kevin Durant, where people find you at?
Yeah. Twitter.com / Ishmael R. Johnson. Of course, TexasBasketball.com, TexasFootball.com. Of course, this past year we've devoted a lot of investment into the college side of TexasFootball.com. So me, Mike Craven, Carter Yates, Corey Hogue, and Greg Powers is our first official college staff on the football side. So we're covering we're all over the state. Craven's really connected with, for any Houston fans listening, Craven's really connected with that program. Him and Dana are really cool. Him and Doug Delk are really cool. So like he's pretty plugged in when it comes to the state. So outside of like the Joseph Duartes and the people that are 24/7 plugged in, give Craven a follow if you're a Houston fan. We're putting out a lot of content. Our philosophy is just to, whether you're good or bad, if you want to read it and you show that you want to read it and you drive traffic, we'll write about you. I mean, we've written about, it really doesn't matter, right? Craven wrote a article over how DJ Durkin's defenses haven't been good, and A&M fans ate it up and they loved it. And they were like, yeah, I've been saying this, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, cool, we'll write more about A&M because they'll read it, right? So, we're willing to listen to fans and we're willing to listen to people. So, we're pouring more resources into college, and it's our first year of having a college staff. So go give us a follow on TexasFootball.com. And then Basketball Magazine cover will be revealed. I will drop the date as soon as I can. The 16th of October.
So very soon. That's fun. I can imagine there's probably not a Houston Scarface cover on the way, but we'll see what happens
can't
there.
Strike twice. Lightning can't strike twice.
Thank you all so much for coming on today. And obviously, like I said, follow both these guys for all things state of Texas basketball, including our Houston Cougars. It's a fun time. It's getting ready for Big 12 basketball, getting ready for Houston basketball. It's a fun season on the way. Thanks again so much for time. Bye, guys.
Appreciate it, man.
Thanks for having us.
All right, so that's going to wrap up our basketball preview for this week. We'll have more basketball coming in the coming days. We even have some two-for kind of days. We're going to do basketball and football all at once. Lots of fun, exciting things in this basketball season. Thank you again to Ishmael and Matthew for coming on today to talk about the Houston Cougar basketball program. They do a great job covering the whole state of Texas. And again, the more you click on it, the more they make. So when you see more Houston Cougar content from them, be sure to click on that Houston Cougar content that they're creating. Thank you so much for tuning in today to Locked On Cougs. Locked On Cougs is a private Locked On Podcast Network, and that means your team every day. Go Cougs.